Hello, everyone. Today, Ollie and myself will be discussing episodes 3 and 4 of Survivor UK. Ollie, let's get right into it. We got a lot to cover since we're doing 2 episodes, but we get a big emphasis on tribe strength in these
Mm,
2 episodes, in particular with Lee, who says his strategy is to keep the strength in his tribe. And we see him talk about this to several people, but it
mm.
starts with to Hannah and to Rach. We've seen this type of strategy play out in Survivor before. How does it usually go for the players?
I know that when we have someone that's very focused heavy on tribe strength and keeping the tribe strong in just one specific area, it doesn't normally work out too well, kind of socially. Um, so I know when we hear Lee talk about strength, obviously I'll give him a little bit of merit in the sense of he hasn't ever watched Survivor, so when and from his background, he's probably like, we need tribe strength, which is brute strength. But obviously, other people know that you need more than just brute strength in these challenges. So yeah, it doesn't normally work out, but we'll see how it goes.
It really kind of exposes kind of a downside to Lee's game where he's not really considering the longer stretch of Survivor, especially when we get
Mm,
into those individual challenges. Uh,
yes.
to him right now, the game is very two-dimensional in terms of we go in as a tribe to these challenges, we come out as a tribe in these
Mm,
challenges. So we'll see, and we'll see how it plays into this episode as well. But we do know that this sort of strategy is kind of rubbing some people the wrong way. We see Ren tell Ashley and Rach that if they were going to get rid of a guy on the tribe, they would get rid of Lee.
yeah.
And it's interesting. We kind of see I do like the hints that we get, or I would say the misdirection, since we know what happens at the end of this episode.
Mm.
But it is interesting to see the episode misdirect us into making Lee the target in the viewer's eyes.
Yeah. I feel like kind of so these last I feel like episode 3 and 4, I feel like the editing stepped up a notch. I do actually think kind of this like Survivor UK did actually kind of listen to what the public was saying. Because when I watch these last 2 episodes from an editing standpoint, you can see that they have listened in terms of kind of the music and how to kind of edit certain things. But yeah, they definitely did a good job of misdirection because when you saw Lenena, because I feel like episode 3 was very Lenena heavy, and obviously we'll get into that. But you definitely saw how some of what Lee was saying was putting a target on his back. So yeah, the misdirection I did enjoy, but I liked that we got to see what other people's thoughts were. And obviously we did see Ren's backstory, which was really nice. And I also want to say we saw the perspective of, I feel like, from from both sides. So that's what I did enjoy. We got to see kind of how not just people felt, not just the girls and Ren about Lee, but also how Lee felt and also the other guys. So I actually did really enjoy it.
I mean, that is like in my eyes, that is like bare minimum of what the production needs to do in order to tell the story, right? Is show the
Yeah.
different perspectives of different things going on at camp.
Yes.
I'm glad that you felt like the editing was stepped up and that the audio choices were different. I think I was more used to it from episodes 1 and 2, and I kind of knew
Mm.
what to come into these episodes expecting. I still feel like the music choices sound like the royalty free versions of like Survivor US soundtrack, or like I'm
Uh,
just saying, like it feels like
yeah.
very like free to use at some cases. And I think that moving forward, I do hope that we see more of a change, especially with the music. But going back to what you said about the perspectives, we barely saw any of Calaton this episode. And I think what this episode 3 really lacked was the fact that it didn't paint a Calaton target, it only painted a
Yeah.
Lenena target. And I
Yeah.
feel like as a viewer, part of the fun and the suspense of Survivor is identifying who the targets are if either tribe is to go to tribal council.
Mm.
And then after the immunity challenge, whichever tribe loses, figuring out if that target is going to get out of their situation or not. So I think it was kind of lacking. I mean, were you missing the Calaton in this early part of the episode?
Yeah, no, I really was because I feel like the only thing that we saw of merit from Calaton was Lawrence's lovely white cheeks.
Oh, yes.
Um,
Yes, yes,
I
yes.
feel like that's all we found out from Calaton that Lawrence loves the skinny dip, which is fine. That is generally something we all need to know about, obviously. Um, but yeah, I do wish that we kind of got to see more of Calaton because I think that's from a Verity standpoint, like we want to be able to get to know everyone. Because especially I have the confessional charts which were brought to us by the Sit Out Bench, another podcast. Shout out them. I always look at the if I ever need to get confessionals up, and we do actually see that we only get a few kind of confessionals. Like there's only one person from Calaton that gets multiple confessionals, Lawrence, because of stuff that happens later on. But for the most part, we only get a couple. We get one from Tanuke, one from Jess, one from Leilani, and one from Matthew. So it's quite clear that if like they only got one confessional, and it looks like they were very short. So yeah, I just love to see more. I would have loved to have seen more Calaton and what was going on with their tribe dynamics, just to see, just for suspense, really.
Yeah, I mean, we do kind of get their tribe dynamics explained in episode 4, and maybe that's part of the problem here. Maybe production sort of knows that the episodes are going to be aired as back-to-back episodes, right? Like you can go straight from watching episode 3 and then go straight into episode 4 on your streaming service. So I think maybe that might be affecting the storytelling here because they know. But
Yeah.
I would suggest making each episode feel like it's its own contained thing with those through lines that go into the next one, right? So we really
Yeah.
should feel like someone from Calaton is at risk for going home. I think Leilani had like one confessional towards closer to the immunity challenge where Leilani was like,
Yes.
I'm at risk for going home. And I was like, oh, okay. You know, like I guess that's the only thing we get, but it's a thing of like show, don't tell. We also get we should probably talk about Doug too, right? So we talked about Lee and Lee's strategy. Christopher tells Lee that he notices that the girls are having more conversations. Lee reinforces to Christopher that the weakest has to go. And Lee says something interesting. He says, like, obviously the boys have an alliance without saying they have an alliance. And it's really interesting. You know, it's definitely some sort of like familiarity bias going on here where Lee especially he's the one that we hear the most
Yeah.
from about it, basically saying like, oh, like not naturally, like we've just sort of banded together. And I think we'll keep this in mind as we continue our discussion today. But I want to talk about Doug. Doug and Christopher, they sort of like shake hands on an more firm alliance with Lee. Doug says that he thinks Lee's strategy is pretty bad, though. Do you remember that strategy we were talking about keeping the tribe strong? Doug seems to think that this is not the best thing for Lee to do. However, Doug's going to take advantage of this by making Lee his shield, right?
Yeah.
And we talked about Doug wanting to find a shield. So it was interesting to see this play out. What do you think
Yeah.
of Doug's game here?
I think Doug actually is playing a really good game because, you know, he's actually being such a big kind of physical target. It's what can I do to give myself a shield? And I feel like he has found that in Lee because obviously Lee is very outspoken. He doesn't mind being a leader and being in charge. And obviously, as we've seen, some of his kind of leadership, what like I can't speak. Some of what he's decided to do has rubbed people the wrong way. So obviously Lee goes, no. So Doug goes, I need a shield. Lee, because everyone's going to want to go after him before me. So I think it's a really good strategy. And actually, we do see how social Doug is, not just with Lee, but with Ren, with Christopher. I feel like Doug is actually playing a really strong social game. Or he's playing a very smart social game, which is allowing him to then make some really good strategic moves that benefit him.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna lock it in. I think I'm gonna say Doug. I think Doug's the winner.
Okay.
So if you're watching along with us in our live chat, if you're watching after the fact, comment who you think is the winner of Survivor UK and give us your reasonings behind it too. That's gonna be the cool part. What did you
Yes.
discover during the episodes? What were some of those hints that make you think one way or the other? All right, tree mail. We get some tree mail, which by the way, another just feeling that I've had. I think maybe we could reduce the amount of screen time that Tree Mail gets, especially because we learn about it anyway. And usually it just introduces a challenge, but
Yeah.
this time it introduced the outpost to that.
Mm.
So I've actually never really experienced the outpost before. I do know it has appeared in like different versions of
Yeah.
Survivor. Or I guess I have. Maybe it's just I've seen it in a different name.
Mm.
But the tribes must select one person from each to go, and it says something about being like a quick thinker. Um, this is interesting. I guess they thought I would have thought if it said quick thinker, I would have thought that there was some sort of a challenge that this
Yeah.
person would have had to do. Is that where you were leaning?
Yeah, well, I definitely think with the tree mail and what it presented, it didn't mention anything about like it didn't give you much, but it gave you enough to think, okay, maybe it's a challenge. So
Right.
I definitely would have been like, right, who would be more kind of mentally quick, who would be able to kind of if it was a puzzle, because I feel like if it would have been anything, it would have been a puzzle or some sort of mental game. Um, so I definitely would have been like, someone else can go.
Do you agree with the two people who ended up going? It was Lawrence from
Lawrence Lane.
Calaton, and it was Ren from Lenena.
Yeah. I think overall they seemed like the smartest picks because I felt like both of them on their respective tribes have shown how good they are mentally, like with comps and kind of creating strategies and stuff. So I definitely think both of them were the good pick. Um,
Yeah.
and especially with decisions, I feel like both of them are very level-headed. So I think both of them were able to weigh up the options that were presented to them.
And guess what? We got the introduction. Officially, hidden immunity idols have made it into the game of Survivor UK. I was waiting for it. When those first two episodes, when Joel wasn't saying, if anyone has a hidden immunity idol, now would be the time to play it. I was like, where are they? Like, is it not going to
Yeah.
happen? So I was relieved to see that they have entered the game.
Mm.
And we got a fun little intro about what hidden immunity idols are, for
Yeah.
anyone who's new to the show.
I
All right.
definitely think that was good because obviously that's one of the things we definitely for the UK viewers we did need that information so they weren't like people weren't just like so what's an idol. So that part I do think was good.
Sometimes there are things that I think really benefit the show to be like a mystery, right? It's okay not to
Mm,
have all of the answers right away. That was,
mm,
um, this might not apply to some people, but there was, what I'll say is there was a very important cookie in one version of Survivor that ended up being a massive through line where the audience was like, I have no idea what this is. And it kind of helped. I did actually really enjoy the introduction to the idol here.
mm.
I thought I wasn't going to, but I had fun with it. And you're right. It was a nice way of sort of bringing everyone in on what this thing actually is.
Yeah.
So the outpost, you got the choice between big fish, little fish, or baked potato. If you choose the big
Baked
fish,
potato.
you only oh that was cute. If you choose the big fish, you only get that. If you choose the little fish, you get a clue to the immunity idol, but you have to share that clue with one other person. And if you choose the baked potato, you get to keep the immunity idol clue to yourself.
Mm.
So, Ollie, what would you have done?
There is every part of me that's like go for the middle option because I think strategically and I think Ren saw this too. It was the most kind of beneficial for all because they were still able to bring stuff and they were able to get something that helped them and also build trust with someone.
Right.
Um, so I definitely would have probably gone for the middle option. It's just how I would have worded it, and then just prayed that whoever else was on the other side didn't just be like, "These were the three options. We'll go ask the other tribe. If they didn't get this option, then clearly," and I'd be like, "That would be the only setback." But I definitely wouldn't get the baked potato. Not the
I
biggest
think baked potato is kind of off the table for something like this. It is an
fan.
immediate red flag. Um, Yeah, I don't to me, honestly, I think the knowledge that an immunity idol is there, I
Mm.
think that is enough of a clue for me. Um, I just to know it's in the game. So I might go for
Yeah.
the big fish just because you're the only one, unless you choose to tell someone else,
Mm.
which Lawrence ended up doing, you're the only one who is aware that there is an idol at camp. And I feel
Yeah.
like having that is enough of a clue.
Mm.
But I could be wrong in that. Did you enjoy Ren's story of what occurred at the outpost when they were explaining what had happened there? I thought I thought it was a good beginning
Yes.
like a starting point for a story.
It was really good to begin with, and I was like, yes, Ren's got this, Ren's got this. And then I can't remember what it was that they said, and I was like, oh no. I also don't think it helped that Lee, I think it was Lee was a fishmonger or had knowledge of fish. Um, I
Oh, did
remember
he?
I remember there was a
Oh.
confessional of Lee, and Lee actually specified what the fish was, and I was like, number one, well done, because I would just look at it and go, fish, silver, lovely. Um, and I remember him in a confessional saying, this fish wouldn't be able to like fully support us. So saying it was this big
Mm,
option. So that's probably where I feel like obviously it didn't help Ren, but I again that's just a unhappy coincidence for Ren. But yeah, definitely I do think looking back, they could have specified more because I think people then were also looking at a bag of rice. I think it's once you then got into the nitty gritty, it was like, oh, okay, I can see where it doesn't look good. But
I thought that here's the issue with something like this, and we see that we see this play out at the end of the immunity challenge,
yes,
where Ren told the tribe what they went through in order to get this small fish or what the options were. And then we see Christopher later compare notes with the other tribe, which by the way, can't wait to talk about that moment. I love when these type of things happen on Survivor, the sort
mm,
of cross-tribal communications. I think it really adds this extra dynamic that's really special. So I thought maybe there was another way of framing it that still revolved around the choice of big fish, small fish, baked potato,
yeah,
but doing something a little different instead of the bag of rice thing. Because honestly, hearing that there was like a bag of rice there, I was like, this doesn't make sense to me.
yeah,
Granted, I am the viewer of it, but you're right. Lee did acknowledge it. And I think this was also funny. Christopher was sort of like when Ren was explaining the outpost, Christopher was sort of like joking, like, "Oh, did you like come back with something like an advantage?" And Ren was like, "No." Ren played this off very well, but
yes,
they were like, "No, no." It was fun, but
yeah.
I don't know. I think I would have gone for the big fish. I think that just comes down to it.
Yeah, part of me, I understand it, and I do think there is definitely a lot of merits and probably logical merits to going for the big fish, because then it's like, okay, you know that there is an idol there, so why not? But also, there's part of me like I don't want to be the only one suddenly searching,
Yeah.
and then people being like, so why is Ollie all of a sudden like he's always in the woods? So I feel like I would have wanted to get that clue to then tell someone, so then at least it can be one on one, and
But
then
hey,
it's fine.
the tribe knew that Ren had disappeared with Doug, right? They noticed
Yeah.
that they had gone off. So
Yes.
it's not that far off. And
No.
the choice of Doug was interesting. We know that Ren and Doug, like, it wasn't explicitly said in the last episode that we watched, episode 2, but like,
Mm,
it felt like something was kind of forming there. So it made sense that Ren went
mm,
to Doug, but
yeah.
Ren also said that they didn't really know if going to Ashley or Rach was the right choice with this information either.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I could kind of see the merit since episode 2 because it did feel like Doug and Ren were the swing votes, more Doug. Um, but I feel like they definitely kind of it. I think even though it wasn't shown in episode 2, I feel like we could see that they were kind of the swing votes, both of them. And I do think he was the smartest choice because I do see the merit with not going to Ashley or Rach, because I feel like they did kind of click up quite quickly.
Mm.
And I think again, why I wouldn't have gone them or even Christopher, because I feel like it was that if Ren was to go to anyone, it would have been in that 5. Christopher's so social that
Yeah.
Ren could be like, I actually don't know where you stand, because so I could tell you, and then you could suddenly tell everyone else. So I feel like Doug was the perfect choice.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. Out of all the options, he's the person that I think is going to win the game. Doug is. So like I'm kind of like, maybe
Bias.
not, but we'll see, right? Like I don't know for sure,
Yeah.
but I do think Ren made the right call here
Mm.
when it came to who they needed to share the clue with.
Yeah.
We so we also get so their alliance is solidified, right? Doug and Ren. And then I do like that Ren was like, I think I played that well. Probably not, but I think I did. I thought that was very funny.
Yeah.
Ash says that Lee took Sabrina's place as the tribe leader. And this is interesting. And Ash says she noticed this as sort of boys' club forming. And this is going to continue on into the rest of this episode. But the mention of Lee keeps pushing for strong players, but also keeps saying, like, well, the women have got to go. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like, I'm curious to dissect that strategy a little bit more as we continue on. But we have an immunity challenge, right? We have an immunity challenge. This was interesting. I like this challenge a lot. And this challenge is really, it just looks difficult. It's that one where they all are attached to a rope. They're all carrying a weight, and the two tribes have to chase each other around a course that's like partially submerged in the ocean until one tribe tags the other. We saw 2 different strategies here.
Yes.
One worked, one very clearly did not work. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on who you're rooting for, Lenena does end up going to tribal council. The strategy was clearly wrong, right?
So
you have a hot take?
Lee, I'm going to give you your flowers in this. I don't think it was a bad strategy. I think the execution was wrong. Because actually, I think going off early and getting sick, I think it's good. Because if you know that you've got a group of people that you can then get around faster, I do think is a viable strategy. Because I do believe we've seen it happen before, so it can be done. I just think the things that didn't work out for them was they picked the wrong pacing and they went too early. Had they said, right, we're going to at least do 2 rotations and then a couple of you drop off, couple more, and then the rest drop off, because then I think the issue with was what happened is obviously Pegleg went after the first thing, and then a couple of other people went, and then people started to drag. And I think the issue, like the big issue, was the 3 of them, Christopher, Doug, and Lee, had the bags on way too early. If I actually think even if they were going to do early, whoever were the first 2 to go off, give it then to the people that were going to go off next, so that the other so the final people don't have all that weight on straight away. Because after the first thing, Doug already had 2, and Doug, so for the entire challenge, Doug was carrying 2. So I actually don't think it was a bad strategy. I just think it was poorly executed.
I think you touched upon something that I definitely agree with, which was when they all started, the pace was wrong. It wasn't it wasn't beneficial to everyone on their tribe. And I think there were some people who were so focused on just kind of like jogging or sprinting even at their own rate that they forgot that there were other people in their tribe that maybe needed a different rate. And I think that's where Calaton was way more successful in terms of showing off their cohesion.
Yeah.
But I think it was a pretty poor decision, in my opinion.
That's fair.
But I think it was a big reason. But you also said that they should have waited longer before dropping off. But the strategy was drop off immediately, which is why I was like, wrong strategy, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I get that. I think I don't think so, because I remember them saying going off early. To me, I would consider that as wait, like not going straight away,
Hmm.
because no, like I think as soon as Pegleg left after that first one, I was like, Rom, you wait, you at least do 2, even 3, with a decent pace. So to relieve those 3, because at the end of the day, if those 3 can do a faster pace, then you're just giving them time and energy to keep going, so that when they do want to attack, they've got the energy, they've got the stamina to do it. Because I think that was a big issue for them, because they then weren't able to conserve their energy until they needed to push. And when they tried to attack and couldn't, they then lost all their energy. That's where it kind of went off for them.
It's
But
true.
I still think it was a good strategy.
Maybe they just needed some clarification and like a
Yes.
shared understanding of what dropping off early means.
Yeah.
But again, that pacing was really wrong from my
Yeah.
perspective to
Oh, yeah.
begin with. So it automatically put them at a disadvantage. And then so Calaton wins immunity. Uh, everyone on their tribe like did such a fantastic job.
Yeah.
And Christopher, Christopher, thank you so much for this. I love this. Finds out from Lawrence, Matthew, and Shy that Calaton got a big fish and not a little fish. So a fish, and they showed the length with their hands.
Let me
The
see.
fish was significantly larger than what Ren came back with. And I
Yes.
thought this was interesting because Christopher also said like, "Oh, did your person have like a choice between like big fish, small fish, cheese, which was different than what Ren had said." Did you catch that?
Yeah. So I know with the baked potato, they also had a block of cheese. I know it was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know it was baked potato, block of cheese, I clue. But like
But
tiny.
but
So
Ren still said it was bag of rice and small
yes.
fish.
So I can't remember if Christopher mentioned the bag of rice, but I remember seeing this exchange and I was like, that's really like, again, that is smart social game, because you can tell that Christopher has straight away gone to the other tribe and gone, I just want to compare notes. And then it's like he's kind of already showing, like with these people, like, hey, I want to bounce off information. And then it's like they could do the same with Christopher and then show that trust. So well done. That was smart. But then he managed to get the information, which was great. I just wish, I think we will see later on that he's got that information. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yes, Christopher has that information, but at least for right now, doesn't really do anything with it because
Hmm.
honestly, Christopher doesn't really need to do anything with that information at this point in the game. And that's kind of like what the game of Survivor is like the give
Hmm.
and take of information to better your position amongst the tribe. And that's where, again, going back to Lee's strategy, it's like challenges are important, sure, but there's this whole other element of the game that you are completely missing at
Yeah.
this point. Okay. So we go back to Lanena Beach, and here's a quote. Here's a quote from Lee. Lee says, naturally, the males have come together. So I got Doug, I got Pegleg. I'm sure I got Chris. I have a really good relationship with Hannah. Doug's got a good relationship with Ren. So we're not letting any of them get voted out. So it's got to be one of the blondes. Holy.
Just went straight for them too.
Yeah,
The
it was. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say the one. It was really interesting because obviously, in terms of the strategy, like you can't deny, like Lee controlled it. Lee was like, "These are the votes. These are who you're going for," and kind of no one said otherwise. But then what was really interesting is in the confessionals, I believe it was Christopher, Hannah, and Ren. I feel, or maybe Doug. It was in those groups, and they all kind of mentioned like, oh, well, this is kind of just what's been told, da, da, da. And I kind of sit there and I'm like, why did none of these people then go with the blondes and be like, let's change it up? Because that's where I feel like I was very confused. I was like, there is this chance. but it was almost like everyone kind of just consensus it's between Rach and Ashley.
I think I mean, this is I'm glad we're talking about this because I saw a lot of people, right, as the episodes aired, um, Survivor UK needs to trend online at some point. It hasn't been,
I'm trying.
unfortunately, but there are some people who are online who are watching along, and that's fantastic. But people were saying, like, why don't they just go after Lee?
Yeah.
And I think it's a really valid question. I think Lee is involved in other people's strategies, meaning, like, let's take
Hmm.
Doug, for example. It's good for Doug to keep Lee in the
Yes.
game because Doug's strategy is make sure there's a shield before me. And Lee made it very easy for Doug not to just be like assumed into that
Yeah.
leadership position because Lee very quickly took the mantle. So, from Doug's perspective, I understand. And then we
Hmm.
have to also consider the game elements from the other players, what lines up with their strategy. And
Hmm.
if it's not that, why wasn't Ashley or Rach able to better integrate themselves
Yeah.
where people would say, no, they're vital to my game. I need to keep them here.
Hmm.
It's a really interesting discussion to have. I mean, do you have any thoughts about who really benefited from this by not targeting Lee?
Yeah, I feel like it didn't really, but I could agree it really didn't benefit Doug because Doug wanted a shield. Pegleg because it seems like them two have been very tight. So obviously, Pegleg will want to be loyal to Lee. Um, I guess you can kind of say Christopher in the sense of it seems like Christopher kind of wants to play this middle ground, middle
He said it,
game.
yeah.
Yeah. So it kind of there maybe because it's like right, he got someone from that side. Let's go for this side. Um, Even though it's kind of contradictory in the sense of because then in the same confessional he was sat there going, "But I really like Ashley and Rach. They're two people." I was like, "Then save them." Um, so yeah, I can kind of see it from other people. Hannah, I would only say in the sense that she was in the minority vote with Lee and Pegleg, so it's kind of like she knows that she can trust them. So it's
Mhm.
beneficial for her in that sense because she is kind of closer with them than say the blondes.
Yes, I was processing everything you were just saying. I think where I keep getting tripped up, especially with how the story is presented to us, is I don't fully understand everyone's strategy. And that's something that we'll see with time if that could iron itself out. We get to see people and like why they feel like they should make certain decisions, but I feel like Doug's the only one of the only people, I should say,
Hmm.
on this tribe in particular that like has a strategy that's not just about well, Christopher too, that's not just about keeping the strength,
Hmm.
um to really focus in on. And again, I'm sure other people do have their strategies. I want to make that clear just in terms of like we are seeing 1 hour out of like 48 hours worth of footage. Like it's very consolidated. And plus, on that note, there are probably things that we did not see. And because people are right, like tons of people this episode were talking about, yeah, we could vote Lee out if it came to it.
Yeah.
Um, but there are so many missing conversations that we don't have ears into that makes me wonder, like, how everyone got their standing in the tribe. Like, that's it. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
All right. Then we go to tribal council. We go to tribal council, and it was a split vote, so that in automatically made it a little bit more exciting than
Hmm.
some of the other things we've seen. Just because it really came down to who was going home between Rach and Ashley. And I have to say, I thought Rach and Ashley did a very good job at tribal council, and even before during the
Hmm.
strategy talk of kind of just like being able to both of them being able to say their piece. Uh, to the unfortunately at this point one of them was going to go
Yeah.
home, but I feel like both of them were able to have their moments,
Hmm.
especially Rach during this
Hmm.
tribal council. I really want to shout out Rach. I thought this was a really great tribal council performance. And I'm gonna miss Rach at camp, right? Like I
Yeah.
thought Rachel was a great character on the show, and a great person. And I forgot to say it last time. I really miss Sabrina. I
Sabs.
do.
R.I.P.
Yeah.
Sabs. No, yeah, for both of them, I think they both did a really good job of kind of campaigning and proving why. Um, I do again. I actually want to give. Yeah, I agree with you on giving Rach her flowers because there was a thing that was said, and it was reading it now. I didn't actually put who it was, but I know it was Lee.
Mhm.
Because they were talking about kind of the strategy and stuff of the challenge. And I do remember now. It was Lee that said, "I didn't underestimate my ability." The subtle shade, and I feel like it was then Rach was then able to kind of defend herself, and that's what I really appreciated with Rach. She wasn't afraid to defend herself and kind of be like, "Hold on, you're saying this, but let me give my 2 cents as well because there is two sides to this." Um, so well done, Rach. Um, and I kind of do agree with it because obviously I do feel like Rach did get a bad rep because everyone was like, "Well, she's a PT. She should have been able to, run."
Oh,
There, I there is a fair few PTs I know. I know that none of them are strong runners. So, just saying that now.
running with a weight attached to people going a completely different pace, partially submerged in the ocean. I, I you know what? I think this just actually shows me a bigger problem that we mentioned before in episodes 1 and 2, which was the fact that the challenges have really been strength focused. And I think that
Mm,
does influence the players as to their vote out order. And I also think that the challenges haven't given everyone an opportunity to really showcase their strengths in the form of like an
yes.
obstacle course where there's different
Mm.
components. So that's my piece on it. I
No,
do want to
that
point out
makes
one
sense.
thing
Mhm.
that needs to it was a big red flag that I think Ren and Hannah should be aware of, which was Lee basically saying, Lee says, uh, the sad truth is that himself, Doug, Christopher, and Peg have proven themselves with their physical abilities. Where was Ren or Hannah's name?
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think that was an oversight of Lee because you never give like you never make that divide. So I definitely think it was Lee was definitely trying to like it almost was like Lee was trying to showcase his people to kind of almost show trust, but by doing so, he was kind of being like, yeah, but the rest of you, just so you know, that's the pecking order. Um, so it wasn't good strategy with him. Also, something that I want to highlight
Mhm.
um, was actually this tribal. I think someone that did a far more better job than he did in the last tribal council was Doug, because I feel like Doug was very squeamish. This tribal, he seemed like a very straight shooter, which I think did really well for him. I think he was finally
Mm,
able to get comfortable because he was asked about an alliance question and he was a very straightforward answer. Whereas then Christopher beforehand kind of gave that very kind of here's all the information but giving you nothing. Like he
yeah.
was able to kind of dust everything over. Whereas then you see Doug was very much to the point. And I actually feel like if people looked into that, I would have looked at that and gone, oh, okay, actually, yes, Doug. And then I would have gone back and been like, you still dusting there? Um, so I do want to say that I think Doug did a really good job this tribal, but
I
I'm
will
still
second that shout out. I agree with you. My issue with Doug's gameplay in episodes 1 and 2, or whichever one this tribe went to tribal council too. Thank you. Uh Again, and Doug's not the only one who's done this, but given like very roundabout answers
yes.
when we can get specific. I guess that there's probably like a fear to sort of be the one to initiate that,
Hmm.
but that's why I sort of appreciated like Rach and Sabrina also in terms of just like get to the point.
Yeah.
Uh with that, unfortunately, we did have to say goodbye to Rach this episode. It was a very close vote, but the tribe ultimately decided that Rach would get the majority over Ashley. We are going to take a very quick break and then be back to talk about episode 4.
What's up, guys? I'm Todd Herzog, the winner of Survivor China, and I want to welcome you to Todd's Pop Shop. Here, me and my husband Jess, we custom make Funko Pops. We'll make literally anybody or anything you could imagine. But being that we're here listening to the Survivor Now podcast, I'm assuming you're all Survivor fans. So take a look at these. Some custom Funkos of your favorite Survivor winners, Sandra and Yul. Or how about Big Brother fans? Suri Goddess herself playing the game of Big Brother. You can also get her in Survivor form. Or maybe yourself with your favorite buff and a torch playing the game. But even better, get yourself with your favorite player like Nora here with Ozzy. And since you're listening to the Survivor Now podcast, if you mention this ad, you will get $10 off your first order and free shipping. All season long, Survivor 45 should be a good one. Mention this ad, $10 off and free shipping. I'll be watching too, still a diehard fan to this day. Hit me up on Instagram, Todd's Pop Shop, or toddspopshop@gmail.com, or on Facebook, and I will see you soon.
Hi, Todd.
Yeah, let's see. We should ask Todd if he's invested in Survivor UK like we are. We got to go into episode 4 now. We start off with Ashley saying that she is nervous about the boys being in a place where they can outnumber the women and Ren. And I think that this is a concern that we also hear from Hannah later as well, where Hannah even starts to be like, okay, we did the Rach thing, but let's make sure that something like that doesn't happen again. So do you think that what we basically just talked about at the end of episode 3 with Lee calling out Doug, Christopher, Pegleg, do we think that that sort of had an effect here?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Because I think you even see it with kind of the girls around. By the way, sorry, I just wanted to point this out. What I really loved was when you saw people's confessionals, I think all of them bar one person, they literally referred to them, the girls and Ren. Just from a social standpoint, I appreciate everyone for that. I think you could definitely see with all of them that, it had an effect because for at least kind of the girls and Ren, it was very much in the back of their minds going, okay, clearly Lee is pointing this thing of boys versus us. So it will be interesting to see how that develops going into this episode and future episodes.
Oh, but there was some good karmactic, I don't know if that's a word, but karma moments this episode that I really enjoyed, especially in that reward challenge that I can't wait to talk about. But we got Christopher. We got an intro from Christopher. We finally got to. Can we? How long into the season are we still going to get these intros? I feel like I feel like we should have heard from everyone by now. And I have to add, I was kind of upset that Rach and Richard did not get an intro package like the other players.
Yes, we definitely didn't get that. Yeah, well, I definitely feel like we're going to have to get some next episode because from my brain, I know there is still a fair few people we haven't.
There's so many people that we haven't heard from.
I'm trying to think. Tanuke,
Rachel. We heard from Leilani this episode. Ashley, we haven't heard from. And there were so many opportunities to hear from Ashley.
Yeah.
Like that's what's so funny about this, where it's just like, when are we going to get some formal introduction to these players?
This is the thing. Ashley has the second most confessionals. Thank you, sit out bench. But yeah, she has the second most confessionals, and we haven't actually had that package yet. But just to point out, there was 2 things that I just need to talk about when it comes to Christopher's backstory. Number 1, it was the finger gun. Did not need it. I was like, why? But also, you can definitely see in his package that, and I don't know if I was the only one that got this, he wants to be a villain. He wants to come and play villainous. I was looking at that. I was looking at how he was speaking, how he was presenting. I was like, you want to be the flashy villain. I can already see it. So see how that goes for him.
I would be interested in that heel turn story for Christopher, because right now he's like the very sociable, always smiling castaway. I'm sorry, you said you had another point.
I can't remember what it was.
Oh, dang it. That was my mistake.
It's probably just the finger gun.
Oh wait, it was just the yeah. Which
just the
I know Joel had a narration in there too. Uh, yeah, I'm still not on board with the narrations, the voiceover narrations. But another
Needs
topic for
getting
another
used
time.
to.
It will take some getting used to, and like the intro to the immunity idols I thought was great, so it'll be fine. But we get some more mention of Shy from Calaton, right? We go to their beach,
Yes.
and Shy's storyline is present, but we also barely hear from him at times. He has his confessionals, but we barely see him interacting with people, and I think that is
Yeah.
definitely by design, right? I think honestly, it's a very strong story that they're telling with Shy. There's something interesting about it. I think it's the fact that we only hear from him occasionally. And I have an example of this later in the reward challenge. But Tanuki says that Shy is kind of disjointed from the group. And this is where some of the stuff like I feel like should have been in episode 3 to be like, oh, like here's the Calaton target if they go to tribal.
Yeah.
But we basically have this one section of Shy is the one to go if Calaton loses.
Yes. Yeah. And it was nice to kind of see the dynamics. I feel like I feel like he needs to open up. We do get a confessional later on expressing that he does kind of struggle to open up. And he knew that he was always going to be worried about a social game, which I also do find really funny because I follow him now on social media and he seems like such a big extroverted, like flashy outfit. Love it. But then you see him, obviously, and it is kind of this quite demure, kind of very chilled, shy, introverted person. So yeah, he just really needs to open up if he wants to obviously stay. And I think he knows that it's just obviously a big struggle for him.
Yeah, and I like the idea that what we would get from Shy in future episodes is sort of this like caterpillar turned into a butterfly type of player edit, right? I think that would be very cool to see how his gameplay evolves if he survives past this what he says is the scariest part of the game for him,
Yeah.
which is the beginning forming connections. So it's really interesting. Again, bringing up Shy because we got to talk about that reward challenge when we get there. We have to also talk about Doug finding the immunity idol.
Yes.
First, I shouldn't say that, but first one of the new version of Survivor UK. Found the immunity idol. That was fun. No burning wax candles to find it. It was just good old hidden in a little tree. I like that he sat on it to make sure that Pegleg didn't see him find it.
Hilarious.
That was really nice. But he finds it and he does tell Ren about it. Do you think that was the right call?
Yeah. I mean, because Ren gave Doug the clue. So obviously it's kind of one of those things. Again, it just solidifies trust because Ren told Doug, Doug told Ren. Boom. You know that's going to there is going to be some like them sticking it out together. But yeah, I did enjoy him sitting down and kind of looking at Peg and being like, don't look behind me. Just keep walking. Go over there, please. Go. Move. I don't know what I'm looking for. I'm playing dumb. Move.
It was also funny because like I thought the way this is so nitpicky, but the way Doug sat down was a little suspicious to me too. It was just like, oh, I'm just gonna sit here now. And I don't think I would have realized if I was in Pegleg's situation, but I did just think it was funny how that all came to be. But I enjoyed it. It's always fun. But there's a twist to this idol too, which is that it can only be played at the next 3 tribal councils.
Yes. So I feel like that. Yeah, I think that brings like a really nice dynamic because it's kind of, as kind of Doug said, like he now has this chance to be a bit more aggressive with his gameplay and kind of definitely do moves that benefit him. It's just that backfire thing because obviously he won't be able to play the idol after the votes. So he just has to make sure that if he plays that correctly, if he ever needs to. But I do like the fact that it is only after 3 tribals. It kind of just it makes it more interesting.
Yeah, there's definitely like a ticking clock on this that is I'm very intrigued by. I think it's a really good choice. And then also Ren does say like I kind of wish that I was the one to find it. And I get it. I totally get it, Ren. Like,
Yeah,
I totally get it. I think that's the risk that
I want.
they had when it came to the outposts, right? And the
Yes.
decision to share the clue. But Doug has it. They know that they're all aligned together, so that's good. We get this fun little debate about possibly cooking a toad. I'm glad they did not.
That toad, because if you're, I think all the British people were like, "Sorry, what did you say?" Because we didn't hear toad. I'm telling you now, most British people did not think they said toad on Peloton.
Okay.
There was someone else they thought, I will put it in the chat. I will put it in the chat what we thought.
How do I move forward from this, Ollie? Now I'm very intrigued. Okay, hold on.
I'm just British people. I'm just letting him know what we thought they said.
Understood. Got it.
Yeah.
Message received. And then we get Lawrence telling Tanuke that about his experience at the outpost, which I just why? But I also think I know.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. I said this in the cast assessment. Tanuke wants a ride or die, and I feel like her and Lawrence are becoming this kind of ride or die, even though we kind of sometimes see it. I definitely feel like they're kind of going to be able to link up without people realizing. But I also think it was good, subtle editing. I actually do want to give props to the editors for this one, because I think it's subtle editing for what we could see moving forward. Because I actually do think, my hot take, I think that was the start of possibly Tanuke finding the idol.
Oh, I wish.
And I'd love
I hope.
that.
I
I'd love
hope.
that. Yeah.
I think that would be great.
Mm.
I thought, but the thing about it was, I know Lawrence came back to the camp in the last episode and said there was the option for him to take the idol for himself, like right
Yes.
then and there at the outpost, and he said he didn't. And I know that intrigued a lot of people to him about, oh, he's so trustworthy, and
Mhm.
I like the idea. Again, I just wish they set the groundwork a little bit more of like a confessional from Lawrence being like, I really like Tanuke. I want to work with Tanuke. I'm going to offer this information to
Yeah.
Tanuke so that Tanuke knows that she can trust me. And
Mm.
we didn't exactly get that. So it was just like, I wanted to know, like, what is your goal objective
Mhm.
with telling Tanuke that there is an idol at camp? So, but this is good because I do like I like the visual of Tanuke with an idol. I think that's going to be
Yes.
very exciting
I
if
like
Tanuke finds it.
Mm.
We get again. We mentioned Hannah's now worried that now that Sabrina and Rach have been voted out and wants to ensure numbers if they end up going to tribal again. I think this is really this is really kind of what we said the last episode was missing. This was good because it was trying
Yeah.
to like spread the target around a little bit more, get us to understand where other players had their worries about certain things, so that going into the immunity challenge, it was more suspenseful about, well, which tribe's going to tribal and then which players going out.
Yeah. And I also think it like that, because I know that it was them three that had the discussion at the well about kind of challengeability. And I definitely feel like I'm so glad that kind of they put that in there, because I think you do, like, they made a point of nimbleness, balance, agility. Like, those are other types of strengths that you will need in challenges. And I just hope
Right.
we're going to be able to see that moving forward.
Right. But production needs to put those challenges in place, right? So that we can. They did. This
Yes, they did.
immunity challenge was different than just strength. So that's great.
Yes.
And we, before the reward challenge, we get, speaking of who is going to be the target, depending on who loses, we get insight into Leilani. We get that Leilani intro. So
Yes.
glad we got it. I'm a fan of Leilani. I'm such a big
Yes.
fan of Leilani.
Yeah.
I think I like the story of being the odd one out. Like I gravitate towards an underdog. And I think it's also why I'm very intrigued by Shy. And I think that she knows that she's perceived as the weakest link. But I also want to shout out Nathan here, who, like, by the way, like, go sign up for his fitness classes or fitness services. He is so spot on when it comes to assessing people's strengths. And I like how he put it. Instead of saying that Leilani is the weakest of the tribe, he says that Leilani hasn't had opportunities to shine in challenges,
Yeah.
which is so true, which is so true. And we're going to see that change in this episode. But
Yes.
I just,
I
hate
no,
these
I
episodes.
I, I get it, because even with the backstory, it made me root for Leilani that much more. I thought
Right.
it made me. I also love the fact that she said, "I'm 45 and a half." I was like, love that. I was like, love the fact that you had to put the half in there. Um, I also, any UK viewers, where do I know Leilani from? Every time I see her, and the more I see her, I know her from somewhere. So people, please, if you're down in the comments, please let me know how I know Leilani. I've seen her somewhere. I could be completely wrong, but I feel like I do.
All right. Help Ollie out, viewers. Leave a comment. I can't help you.
I know.
Let's go into the reward challenge. There were a couple of things that I really want to touch on. So this was fine.
Yeah.
This was basically a very similar challenge to, except it's not on sand. It's in the water now. The capture the ball and put it in your goal. It was kind of like that, where you had to like
Yeah. We've
physically run
this
into someone.
Yeah, this challenge we would have seen on Australian Survivor. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. But I have to shout out. So again, prefacing, this is the one where two players from each tribe have to run at each other, pass each other, and the first person to ring a bell on the opposite side wins a point for their team, in the hopes of earning the reward of barbecue, which honestly looked
Barbecue.
really good.
Yeah.
I really need to shout out Rachel here, who I thought was awesome in this
Yes.
challenge. So it was Rachel versus Hannah. And what I loved so much about this was Rachel's strategy. So they both come at each other. Everyone else had been like clashing in the center, which I felt wasn't good for anyone to like
Mhm.
do that struggle. You definitely didn't want to be the person that ends up playing the role of trying to stop someone because you're
Mm.
at a disadvantage. But what Rachel does is make it seem like her and Hannah are just going to pass each other and first person to get their wins. But without even turning around, Rachel grabs Hannah behind her and just starts pulling her
Yeah.
down the water. And I thought that was genius. Like, it gave
Yeah.
no clue that she was going to take that approach, and it really set Rachel up to take that point really
Yeah.
well.
Because I
I
think
thought that
also
was fun.
what she was able to do was, because they were kind of, I think Rachel had just a bit of a lead, but I think what it did is, as soon as they tugged, it made Hannah kind of turn around and be like, okay, we're gonna fight.
Yes.
But then it's like, oh no, wait, now you're ahead. I've got to kick you back. So yeah,
Yes.
definitely props to Rachel. Also, I do want to shout Rachel out for another reason, because the confessional beforehand,
Oh, I missed it. What was it?
she just really wanted some barbecue chicken wings, and I said I'd shout this out. So and I just love the fact that she was like, I want a barbecue chicken wings. I want this. I want meat. She wants meat, and then we had a barbecue reward. Lovely.
Mhm.
And I do also want to say, I like that they are they showcase the names of the challenges. I actually really like that part, because at some point when he's discussing the challenge and you see what's happening, there is just that little trench run, and I was like, I like that, because we get to a sense of what it is.
Yeah, I can tell you I really didn't pay attention to the names,
Well,
but I'm also
I did.
conditioned really not to. But it is
No, that's
cool.
fair.
It is cool that they're sort of like
Mm,
giving like something
yeah,
instead of having, like we do, explain exactly what you saw.
yeah,
It's nice. I get it.
yeah.
But yeah, I totally missed it this time.
No,
The
that's
other
fair.
thing I want to talk about is Lever Shy.
I knew you
This
would.
was this was perfect storytelling, in my opinion. The last episode we watched, episode 2, I we talked about Lee and how he like sort of taunted Shy, or like it was Lee versus Shy. Lee got the upper hand. He got very far away from Shy and then made a big show and a big spectacle
Yes.
out of uh being so far ahead and then ultimately winning the point. And like I'm a very I I'm a very empathetic person. I really felt kind of that weight from Shy. Like it was like it felt
Mm,
embarrassing to me. I would have been
yeah.
embarrassed, but I loved this. So
Yes.
they announce it's Lee versus Shy, and Rachel tells Matthew, Matthew, you probably should have gone against Lee. But Matthew reveals that Shai demanded to go against Lee. We never saw anything from Shai leading up to this point that
Mm.
what Lee had done in that last challenge had affected him so much. And it was so great. I wasn't expecting that sort of payoff with that moment. And I was
Yeah.
really taken aback and I really enjoyed it. And it made it all the more better that Shai won
Mm.
and gave Lee a hug.
Yes. I mean, I will say I was when we talk about someone that was ranting about those antics of episode 2, that would have definitely have been me. But I completely get it, because I feel like if I was Shai in that instance, I'd want to go against Lee to beat him, to be like, just to show that, you can't beat me at everything. And yeah, I agree. There was definitely a lot more sportsmanship this challenge, which I really did appreciate. Every single person after the challenge, like after their things, hugged each other. But yeah, I feel like Shai needed that for himself. He needs to be like, yes, number one, I can beat this boxer. Number two, it wasn't just a one-off thing. And I just more for himself. He's like, yes, I can do this. But I do think a lot of other people proved themselves in this challenge, for me anyway. I mean,
So
Ashley,
many. Go ahead. Ashley the Great.
only one to get a point from Lenena, and everyone's perceived her as weak. She was able to do that.
Yeah.
Jess, everyone kind of
So good.
I didn't think Jess had that strength, and I was like, well done, Jess. I was like, you've proved yourself there. Again, Shai. But yeah, it was the sportsmanship that I really did appreciate.
I'm going to say
Everyone was
Leilani
just-
also, because I know, I
Yes.
think Leilani, again, Leilani found herself in the role of trying to restrain someone from getting to the point, which instantly
Put her on the back end.
Exactly. That being said, I thought the effort that she showed in the challenge was
Yes.
awesome. So, like, again, I think the big pro of this cast is that I haven't seen anyone not give it their all.
Yes. And
You
I feel
know,
like
like-
that. Sorry, I was just going to say that's what you'll see with kind of the UK lot. We will give it our all. Like everyone perceives us as these kind of like really nice, like la di da, have some tea. We will give it our all. We will not go down swinging. And then afterwards, we will give each other a hug and go, well done for, completely beating each other up, and carry on.
And carry on. And you were right. Ashley did note that she was the only one who won her round, and Lee did not. So interesting. I think like how Shai kind of needed the Lee being beaten type of thing. I think Ashley kind of needed to see Lee being beaten too. I think the audience needed to see Lee get beaten in one of these rounds. I was fine with it. All right, let's go over. We get the barbecue. Not much happens here. Looks great.
Are we not going to talk about Lawrence with his corn in the convention? That was the highlight. It was the barbecue, and then Lawrence was in the confessional and he had the corn.
Just holding corn.
Yeah, he was talking, but it was just like there was this corn, and you were just having this thing, and it was like, there's the corn. I just really appreciate that. I appreciated it because it gave me, I don't know, for me that felt of merit, because he kind of gave me, what I'm going to say is he gave me Fabio vibes in that moment. And that's all I'll say. Just carefree and jovial. Oh, you don't know, it's fine. Fabio, someone from another season of the US. And that's all I'll say.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not a US expert like that. But interesting. Okay, interesting. But you know what? There are those small. I talked about the small things that I really enjoyed that like felt more substantial to me as a viewer. That's another. It's a small, tiny detail, but you're right. It made it like just all the more enjoyable. So this was good. We also get an intro from Matthew, and Matthew talks about being underestimated because of his age, and let them underestimate him.
There was one thing he said in that package, and I was like, what? 22 jobs.
Yes.
This is a British thing. If we see that you've had 22, if you bring your CV and say you've had 22 jobs, that is not a good thing. Because we sit there, and again, he's 21, so he would have only started working when he was 16. That's 5 years. So he's had 22 jobs in that time. Why were you not able to hold any of those 22 jobs, Matthew?
I'm sorry, are you hiring him for a position or
No, it's just a very UK thing. Us Brits will sit there and be like, why have you had that many jobs in that short space of time? So they will all understand what I'm talking about. But I did enjoy it. He did come across very unassuming. It was just that I had to talk about that because I
maybe
know
he had multiple jobs at once.
22 and 5 years.
All right. Anyway, I'm glad I have some more. Thank you for providing me some more knowledge. I don't even know how to transition from that. It's a pretty positive vibe back at camp, like, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's nothing. Tanuke talks to Rachel and Matthew about
Mm.
Shai being the one to leave. We
Yeah.
get more of that. Matthew doesn't feel like he had genuine conversations with Shai, so this is a problem for Shai's game. Shai does need to kind of like work on this to get further into the game. But we do, again, here's an instance where we hear from Shai saying it takes me a while to open up to people.
Yeah.
So I do like that we're getting that insight. And again, just really interesting the way they're telling Shai's story. And then we have the immunity challenge, very simple one. Each player will hold a rope to balance a disc, and then each person will take turns stacking a block to eventually spell out the word immunity. If someone falls off, or if one block fell off, I think you start again.
Yeah. So if any of the blocks fell, or if you fell, it would go. Do you want to know what it was called?
Sure.
Disky business. That's what it was called.
Wow. Thank you. I thought it was interesting also that in the first reward challenge, the one where they had to go ring the bells, I found it interesting that they made them talk about who was going to sit out, even though it was like a one-on-one type of thing. So like someone was always going to eventually sit out. It was weird that I don't remember them doing that on other versions of Survivor when it's one-on-one, noting who's going to sit out, because eventually someone will be able to sit out.
I don't think they actually did that in episode 2. So that was interesting. I know of this season. I don't remember them asking Lenena, but then I remember them asking, obviously, Calaton this episode.
We have Rob in our chat who says both challenges in episodes 3 and 4 have really left me craving a classic obstacle course and puzzle combo. Rob, yes. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. We've been saying it. Where are the obstacle courses? Do you remember the teaser trailer? We saw there was one of the castaways who like dives in off of it. I'm waiting for that. So I don't know. I'm hoping it comes soon. But Lenena wins immunity. I like this. It was suspenseful. I wish it was a different challenge, but I thought the way they edited this, it was very suspenseful. It was very good. It just, when you think some people were going to win, it dropped. So that was really fun.
Well, this was the good, I'm just saying, this was the good thing about this challenge, because it looks so simple, but it's not. Because all it takes is a little bit of movement, and then that stack's going. Credit to Leilani, Lee, Tanuke. Those were the 3 that they did really well on this challenge. Leilani especially, like, this was her moment, because she was like Joel said, she was a gymnast. Also, I just want, this is a random thought, but it was when I was rewatching it again today, this morning. Me and Matthew have, not you, Matthew, Castaway Matthew, we have the same shoes. I was when they did the close up on his shoes, and I was like, oh my God, I have those shoes. Just a fun fact. But this challenge, I do have.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm here with all the random facts today. I do have one little moan, though. I have one moan. So this is where, we had the things about the editing at the start of the season.
Of course. This
is where it's now affected. And this is where I'm just saying this to, if any of the editors watch this show, this is where I'm now I sit there and I go, I was a bit, not upset, but they, in the trailer at the start, they showed Lenena winning this challenge.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
So when I saw everyone walking and I saw the challenge displayed, I was like, oh, well, I already know who's won. And that was my upset, because I don't know if anyone else watching remembered, but I just remember watching it going, oh, I already know this. So that's where I kind of want to implore the editors for next season, because we're hopefully going to get a second season, to kind of remember, like, maybe don't showcase those, because I went into that challenge just having it in the back of my mind, being like, just seeing it and being like, oh, okay, actually, we've already seen from the trailer who wins this challenge.
Yeah, I don't know why they do that. I don't like it. I do agree they need to stop doing that. Um uh, you're right. It takes away the suspense. The moment you see the challenge laid out, you're like, "Oh, okay." So
Yeah.
it automatically means that that part of the episode doesn't matter. And that shouldn't be the case. And something else that I think the editing is really lacking in is tribal council, because these tribal councils, to me, I don't know about you, have been going by so slow. If it is slow enough that I notice the palm fronds on the floor of the tribal council and I'm like, I wonder why those are there. I think it's too slow.
I think episode 3 tribal council, yes. This tribal council, I think they did do a better job with the suspense. I will say, I think with the third tribal council, it was a very weird edit going into the vote. Like, I don't really need to see every single person. Sorry. I didn't need to see every single person walk in, doing a vote, and then walking back. Like, I feel like that's where they kind of, it seemed very slow. And because they didn't really have a lot of music. So that, but I do think this tribal council was a lot stronger. But yeah, I do get what you mean in terms of that. But obviously, as we know, Lenena wins. So we go see Calaton.
There's a twist to this tribal council, though,
Yeah.
which is that they are not sending someone home. They are sending someone to the other tribe. They're sending someone to Lenena. Okay. Strategies. It doesn't feel like strategies changed much here. It seemed like they were going to vote Leilani out one way or
Yes.
the other. Maybe I wonder if they should have been given. We've seen this twist before, so like I'm not even sure how I feel about it. I wonder if they should get the heads up at the immunity challenge after. I know they want the surprise from the other tribe, and
Yeah.
like I get that, but I don't know. It doesn't. I don't think this really does anything to like just do it here, because it always seems like the person who is going to go is the one who ends up going. So
Yeah. No, actually, that's an interesting thought. I hadn't thought of by that point. Yeah, I guess it would lose the suspense. But I still think it's a good twist, because
yeah,
obviously there is a chance something could change, because even though obviously we saw that Leilani was the target, which I still kind of feel bad for, because you even saw in her confessionals, and even when speaking at camp, she was really proud of herself, and she was like, this is why you should keep me, because this is what I was really good at. And even Joel like said, well done, Leilani. Like, it was very much give Leilani her flowers because she deserves them, but it didn't mean anything. Because the only thing we could have seen happening different was Shy leaving. That would have been the
right.
only thing that people have gone, okay, we've just got to send them to the other person's camp. We send Shy, we don't camp morale. But everyone did, like we said, we've seen this very big kind of challenge, heavy focus as reasonings as to why. I did find it interesting, though, just going back to the pre-discussion. I feel like it was very divided, because I feel like we had Tanuke, Matthew, and Jess, who seemed very focused on tribe dynamics. They were the ones kind of pushing for Shy.
Yeah.
Whereas Rachel and Nathan were very more kind of challenge strength. Because we saw the scene of, it was Tanuke and Jess, they were talking and kind of were pretty much on par with kind of being like, Shy's the one to go. And then Rachel comes in and kind of gives the challenge thing. And that's where I feel like people started to kind of sway. I also don't actually mind that group. I just want to say, I do kind of love that trio. I'm here for it.
Say the trio again.
Tanuke, Rachel, and Jess.
I like that trio too. And I think also Nathan said, I know Tanuke and Nathan, they sort of like hypothesized like what would happen if Shy were the one to go. And I know Nathan also said like Leilani's contributions to the challenges won't be missed as much if she were to go, despite having a really great challenge to right? She definitely showed her
Yeah.
strengths here and showed her strengths in all the other challenges too, right? Like 14 minutes holding one of the barrels in episode 1. That's a long time to hold that much weight and you're all holding the same weight. So like I'm going to give props there. But
Mm.
it kind of just goes to show like I think you were right. I think it was kind of split. I don't think the twist changed things for people. I think it
Mm.
was always going to be pretty much unanimous. That being said, we didn't see we didn't even see Leilani's choice of who Leilani would have sent to go.
I know who it was.
You do? Did it? What was it?
It's on the Wikipedias. I just look at the Wikipedias because I'm that.
I didn't think we saw the votes. Oh,
No,
who
we
was it?
didn't. We didn't see hers, but on the Wikipedias, it's all said Rachel on both.
Well, how did they know? How did Wikipedia know?
Well, because I presume Survivor would have done. I don't know. It says Rachel.
Okay. I'm taking that with a grain of salt.
I've checked the real stuff. Well, that's all. That's all.
All right. Well, Leilani is voted to Lanena, and I'm happy. I'm glad that we still have Leilani
Yes.
in the game.
I really do hope that she does well there. Like I said this. I am rooting for Leilani, so I hope that she can find a spot somewhere in that tribe.
I wonder if Hannah, because Hannah was very vocal this episode about like who I don't know, like after that tribal, Rach is gone, Sabs is gone. This isn't looking too good. I wonder if Hannah and Ashley might like team up with Leilani. Like I would like to see that happen. I think that would
I'd
be
like to
very
see
cool.
that happen as well.
Yeah. What do
That's
you think is
great.
going to happen? I'm talking to the viewers, of course. Leave a comment for us in the chat down below about what you think is going to happen in the next couple of episodes of Survivor UK. Ollie, we have episodes 5 and 6 coming up very soon. Still enjoying the season?
Yeah, I am. As I've said this, as a Brit, regardless, I am enjoying this season. I do feel like it's getting stronger each episode, and I feel like
I do too.
people are showing like the cast. You guys are showing what it means to be British and how basically we can play Survivor just as well as everyone else. So still praying for that second season. I hope it does well enough. So I'm manifesting, but I love it. I'm always gonna love it.
Let's end it here with that manifestation, and we will be back to discuss episodes 5 and 6 next time. Thanks all.